But welcome back to another episode of the Buffalo Happy Hour podcast. Mike, what's going on, dude?
New week, new attempt. We're going to try our best at sticking to some sort of structure and schedule, which I doubt.
I don't know if any of this works. I want you to know that we kind of started using this, but I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't watch any videos. I see a record button here, and I see buttons, and I have an SSD. I don't know if this is actually working. I just want you to know that this might not work.
If it doesn't work, then we'll edit the old school way, because we have to, and then we'll return it and get our money back. Because I don't know what else to do.
I love that this thing is super cool, but I'm just not sure what's going on.
Just let me know if it works, because I know as soon as we're done recording, you're going to go upstairs and try to see if it worked.
No, we're downstairs, friend.
You know what I mean?
The toughest part is switching to you when you talk and switching back to me when I talk. Because I don't have that attention. We need Jamie here. We need a third person in this podcast. Would you ever think about bringing a third in here?
Yeah, I already have.
What about for the podcast?
I already have. I hate you so much. Last week we talked about being gay. This week's off to a good start. Can you talk about our sponsors, please?
Addie's, thank you so much for your logo here or wherever.
Cheers to another year,
Yep.
Addie's.
Queen City Creative Works, basically an Etsy shop on roids. They make anything that you would want. There is a coaster over by Michael. Michael, put it up to the camera, please.
What do you want?
Michael, put it up to the camera. The bottle opener. See, look at that thing. That thing's pretty sweet, isn't it? They make that. They can make anything that you want. They can do vinyl prints. They can do anything that you want. So go hit them up, queencitycreativeworks.com. Talk to Nick and Lisa. Family-owned business. They're crushing it. They had an amazing 2022, so let's give them an amazing 2023 and sell out of the Buffalo Happy Hour merchandise, because that would be sweet for them. And it's very reasonably priced, because they are not in the business to make a ton of money. They're in the business to help grow buffaloes. So go hit them up, queencitycreativeworks.com. So, Michael, do you have a useless fact for today, or are we just chatting about last week?
Of course I have a useless fact for today.
What is it?
In 1824, a Dutchman bought the island of Manhattan for $24. Today, it would cost just over $8 billion. So Elon Musk can buy Manhattan.
That's honestly cheaper than I thought it was going to be.
That's insane to me.
So Twitter is worth more than the entire island of Manhattan?
But you're not thinking. So here's the distinction. The land, not what's on the land. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but still, I feel like that would be worth more, wouldn't it?
I mean, it's just the land.
Land's worth a lot.
It is, but like it's an island, and it's most of those skyscrapers are supported by like helical piers to go down to like bedrock.
So,
Well, it's composite soil.
global warming.
Here we go.
The sea level drops, right? Even though people are thinking that it's rising, it could potentially drop, dude. There's a lot going on. We don't necessarily know. Sea level drops. Are there plateaus of land underneath a certain level of sea levels that then we can then develop? Like, could Manhattan potentially get bigger because we have tiers of Manhattan? You know what I'm saying? Like, just basically you step down a couple steps and you're in like Manhattan Light, you know? Like, you can actually walk to the Statue of Liberty. It's not just water.
Because the water's flowing away?
Because the water has just sank to a level where now you see land. I saw a rendering of New York City after the sea level goes down. And it's just like this beautiful city on top basically of like a cliff and undeveloped soil underneath, because the sea level has dropped so far that it exposes new, basically hard land because it's dropped so far. Like, the whole aspect of the world was that the Ice Age melted everything, and the sea levels rose to the fact that we lost so much land because it just wasn't uncovered or was covered by water, right? So if we ever go back to, I'm getting really deep here, but if we ever go back to the fact that we get a sea level drop and all that land is exposed again, what do we do? Do we just develop it? Whose is it?
Well, I think there's natural borders that push out into the water levels. Like your property line on a beach pushes out into certain areas of the water. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like the actual border of the United States is not where land meets water.
Right.
So I think that's just naturally how that would go. I think. I don't really know how else to explain that.
Yeah. I'm trying to find that image.
Well, it's basic. National Geographic had a show called Drain the Oceans, and they basically drained all the Great Lakes. They drained the Atlantic and Pacific and things like that to kind of see what it would look like if there was no water inside of those bodies of water that currently exist. It's a great show. It's a good series, and it's super informative. And they, they'll touch on like the Marianas Trench, but yeah, I think developers and governments would basically just buy that or just claim that they own it type deal and develop it if they knew that the water was never going to come back. But I think that's the other element to it, is knowing if the water's ever going to come back.
How do you know that, though,
Science. Science is the only answer, man.
Yeah, I know. I can't find it. But it was a really cool aspect to think of, like, all this new land that we have because the sea levels have dropped.
Can you imagine owning Manhattan for $24?
No. Can you even buy a coffee in Manhattan for $24?
Yeah, I did it. It was
Obviously, that was hyperbolic.
not just on pretentious or anything, but I traveled to Manhattan before.
What do you think? What do you think Los Angeles could be bought for? If New York City or if Manhattan was bought for $24 and is now worth what?
$8 billion.
What do you think Los Angeles is? Do you think it's more or less?
I'm gonna Google that because I'm curious to know how much.
Do you find it weird that we just bought Alaska?
No,
Why?
it was strategic. The way people, bro. That's the way people move.
It was strategic so we can just like be aware of Russia.
Oh, I would Google that. It's gotta be. It's gotta be. It's so close.
Dude, it's like 50 miles between the two.
Yeah, like what other reason would you buy Alaska? Like real reason, not like this is what the history book said. You know what I mean? Like the real reason why we bought Alaska, it was to get and maintain eyes on Russia. Had to be.
Yeah.
Because when the thing freezes, you can walk from continent to continent. I mean, stop the nonsense, bro.
It's literally 50 miles, right?
Yeah, it's a joke.
It's less than from here to Rochester away.
Yeah,
From Russia.
correct. Imagine walking over there. Just wanted to try it. Just wanted to see.
I heard you guys got the vodka here.
Yeah, right.
Is that part of Russia inhabited though? There's a majority of Russia isn't inhabitable, right?
Same as Canada. Over 50% of Canada's population is around the Great Lakes.
That's because they're poor.
No. Over 50% of Canada's population is around the Great Lakes.
That has to be settlement and resources though, right?
It's because of water.
Yeah, right.
And it's because every major city is around that water.
Right. Because when they started, they needed the resources.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, though.
I don't know. I don't even know if this is real. No, that can't be real. That's for the movie.
What movie?
La La Land.
Never seen it.
I Googled how much is LA land worth, and they're saying $30 million. Like, no. It's not. That's how much So the movie grossed $447 million. That's not what I'm asking.
So the movie's more expensive than the actual land.
Yeah, right. Like,
oh God. So no idea.
no idea. I think, yeah. So did you find anything about why we bought Alaska?
No.
All right,
It's got to be strategic.
It has to be. Everything is strategic. Just like if we fight in a war somewhere, then we never leave that country. That's why we still have a base in Germany. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be a strategic reason. Why did
because Alaska wasn't the same situation as Hawaii was, right?
No.
Hawaii was their own control, and we're just like, this is ours now.
Yeah, no. We foresaw a potential for gold, fur, and fisheries.
I mean, that is true, though.
As well as more trade with China and Japan. The Americans worried that England might try to establish a presence in the territory, and the acquisition of Alaska, it was believed, it would help the U.S. become a Pacific power. So...
It is true, though. Did you listen to the latest Rogan where he talked to, not the latest, but one of the latest where he talked to the Alaskan gold miner? That's pretty fascinating.
And then same thing for Hawaii. We had a perceived threat of a Japanese invasion, so the military was like, we'll just take over and annex Hawaii, essentially, so that way we have guys on ground, basically. I need some juice, bro.
Go for it. So, let's talk football for a little bit.
What do you want to talk about?
What were your expectations for this year? Right now, Bills, end of the season, this is January 11th, and they are 13-3 going to the playoffs. Is this where you thought that they would be?
I didn't know if we would be 13-3. I knew that we really wouldn't lose a lot this year. So I'm glad we didn't. 13-3 makes sense if you look at our calendar. Like, from the beginning. There was a lot of unforeseen things, though. Like, other teams dealing with injuries and things like that. I do have to say, I had a very strong inclination that the Jags were going to win the division, and I'm glad they did. So that was really cool to see actually happen. I was thinking going into this year that we would have around like 5 total losses, not 3.
Yeah.
And even with the injury bug, I thought that we would get to like deep, like a game away from the Super Bowl. Or if we go to the Super Bowl, like, I don't know if we win it. Those are my expectations.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it capped off. I'm so drained from this year between blizzards, games changing, not having games. I mean, dude, the amount of primetime games and not having a Sunday at 1 o'clock. We had like 2 Sunday 1 o'clock games.
Right.
It's ridiculous. Like, it's not even fair to the team. Short weeks, injuries, DeMar Hamlin, like all of the things. If the
40-person death blizzard, cops shoot, like everything happened this year.
Yeah, mass shooting, blizzard. If the season ends in 3 weeks, I'm not mad. Like, I think the city and the team are just exhausted from everything because it's been. Resiliency is a thing, right? And I think having a team that is able to handle and cope with the amount of adversity that we've been able to endure, I don't think the city will be mad if we don't win at all. I think the fan base can literally look at the team and just say, we're with you. Like, we're smoked. Like, WTF. And there was a dude that works for NFL Network who's been in the city of Buffalo for a week. From the Cincy game, and then DeMar happens. He comes to Buffalo the night of the game, stays in Buffalo the entire week up until the Patriots game, and he leaves like 2 days after the Patriots game. And he said, live on air for his broadcast, he goes, I've been covering football, professional football, for 20 years. And this was the first time I've ever seen a team look at the stands and pull strength, motivation, drive, and energy from their fan base. It's always the other way around. And he goes, and it wasn't like, oh, it's a 3rd and short, and this drive and this play is basically our season. If we can convert, we'll win. It was a literal, like, we had 2 days to prepare for the Patriots. Mm-hmm. And if you take Nyheim Hines' returns out, we lose the game because their offense outscored our offense. Our defense wasn't stopping a couple of their wide receivers who were wide open. We played bend, don't break. We barely made adjustments. We're beat up and smoked. And luckily, special teams allowed us to win that game. And it was evident to him, this reporter, where he's like, they're smoked. Like, this team is just exhausted. It was a short week, 2 days to prepare. They don't care about the game. They want to know if their best friend's going to survive. Like, that's where their head's at. And you have numerology at play that brings dudes to tears when they're trying to, like, talk about it or describe it. You have an opening kickoff return that everybody gets goosebumps over, and literally just, like, you can't even talk about it. Mm-hmm. You can't even talk about it because you start to cry. Like, it's so emotional. And I don't know. And it just hits different. Like, we had Damar Hamlin's injury happens 38 times a year, statistically, across all sports. Baseball, lacrosse, football, etc. It's a freak accident, but it happens 38 times a year. That's an actual stat. It's not that uncommon. I don't know what it was or why or whatever, but the emotion around that injury was so different, like, this time. And I think it was just because of every outside variable outside of the NFL, between mass shootings, politics, current events. Like, the country's yearning for some sort of event that unifies the people nationwide. And Damar and his injury legitimately was, like, the most recent thing that brought everybody together outside of the initial start of BLM. The Tops mass shooting event was primarily community-based, even though it made national news and a lot of people cared. It didn't have the same impact internationally that Damar's injury did. The closest thing was 9/11,
right?
In my opinion, realistically, like,
well, because everybody can attribute another tragic event. The losers and the people that are stupid basically can kind of change things into something that they're not. Like the Tops mass shooting, everybody, like, losers start saying, "Oh, gun control," and it's like you're getting away from the point.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. You get people that are going like, "Oh, it's this," and it's like, dude, you're missing the point here. I think that Damar's situation and that injury, there was a few people that are like, "Oh, he COVID vaccine." And it's like, bro, you are so wrong, because it's not like he collapsed from a non-contact. Like, everybody knows that it was contact related. It was just a freak accident. So shut up. And I think that everybody kind of, there was no scapegoat of, oh, it was this. Everybody kind of was just like, this is scary. It can happen to anybody during football games, so let's all unite. And I think that that's the first time, like you said, since 9/11, where we didn't have an excuse to say, oh, but it could also be this, you know?
And as a Bills fan, that event and then the subsequent game against the Patriots, everyone will know where they were during that kickoff.
Right. What are your thoughts on the NFL being scripted?
I think it's a rumor. I think it's a fake conspiracy that people just kind of hold on to as like you can't, I attribute it to where science fails, religion kicks in, right? So in the medical field, no coincidence or pun intended, when doctors, nurses, etc., can't pinpoint what actually happened scientifically, they just chalk it up to God. They just chalk it up to science. Like science isn't there yet. We don't have that answer, so faith kicks in and fills that void. I think that's what it is. I think they can't explain it. You never can. And it's just one of those things. I mean, it's just one of those things you can never attribute to one thing specifically. And as a, like, if someone is, what is the term, like an atheist? If you're an atheist or someone that just can't rationalize why, then you would just say, oh, it's scripted, just to kind of cope.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's just, it could be faith-based. It could be a number of things. That, I mean, bro, did you watch the first kickoff return to open the game? Were you watching on TV?
Yeah.
Okay, so you heard the broadcast's call.
Yeah, I heard.
You didn't hear the local radio's call.
Right, I heard Romo ruin it because he was talking through the entire thing.
I wasn't home. So I was driving and I was listening to the game because I had that meeting that morning, and I was dropping off my coworker at his house, and I was in his neighborhood and driving down his street to his house, approaching the stop sign, and Naheem breaks it, and I'm listening to Brown call it. Mm-hmm. It was so much better than Romo.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you listen to 550, so I know you heard it the next day going to the office where they played it, and you're like, that literally poops on Romo. It makes me understand why my dad growing up would put the radio at the base of the TV, mute the TV, and listen to the local guy because there's so much more emotion. I'll never forget that call. I just won't. And then when I drop my buddy off, like, we're excited. Like, we high-fived while driving, right? Like, the 9. I get him out of the van, the work van, and I'm just like, I got to go home and watch the game. And it was me, full transparency, I needed him out of the van because I was holding back tears and I didn't want to cry in front of him. And then when he closed the door, I backed out of his driveway. I'm driving to the stop sign, and Eric Wood started talking. And then they sent it to Sal. And Sal is on the sideline, and I lost it because Sal made a more famous call, in my opinion, than Brown did. And, Brown was just screaming. He's like, he's up the right-hand sideline, and then he's calling the numbers. He's like, the 40, the 50, the 40, the 30, the 20. No one's going to break him. And then he's just like, it's a return. And I'm like losing my mind where you can't script that. And then Sal Capaccio is on the sideline, and he goes, are you kidding? And you can tell, like, everyone around him is screaming. And he's screaming. He's screaming into the microphone, and he's calling it up, and he's like, guys, it's Hollywood Buffalo. And that quote is, like, that's as famous to me as Rick Jeanneret calling some of these Sabres calls where it's like, Mayday, Mayday.
Right.
Like, that's entrenched for me forever. Like, you can't script that shit. And it was so, like, just, okay, like, we can play football. We can now tackle somebody. And then Greg Rousseau, the next series, buries Mac Jones. And then Eric Woods is like, this is it. Like, we're setting the tone. We're not losing this game. And Eric Woods stepping up and saying that, it's just like, I will die for this team.
Right.
Like, I will drive wherever and set anything on fire. Like,
is that the most influential Buffalo play, like, of all sports that just happened? Because I feel like it has to be just based off of situation, scenario, and result. Like, how else
I think
can something be so much pent up sadness, not necessarily aggression, but kind of aggression, and just like wanting to move forward, and then that happens. Like, what else can even compare to that?
none of it's positive with the Bills.
Right.
You like wide left. Music City Miracle.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first major impactful play that's positive.
Genuinely, I've seen this meme go around a couple times, but I honestly believe that if somebody doesn't do this, it is truly an opportunity lost. If, and I'm saying if, because obviously I don't want to jinx it, knock on wood, Buffalo Bills win the Super Bowl this year. Is there a movie that is made of this season?
There's going to be there's going to be something, whether it's a documentary, whether it's like an E60 special. The problem is they haven't followed this team from the beginning, so they're just going to pull from all these different things, right? And they're going to create. It's going to be a nice production. Obviously, they're going to pull from each major event that happened this year. There's a part of me that doesn't. I don't know. I mean, as much as I want a Super Bowl win, there's a part of me that just wants a reset, that just wants the season over with, so that the team can just take a step back and say, dude, WTF, like we're smoked, you know?
But like, how poetic would it be at the end of the year, we win the Super Bowl and we give the trophy to DeMar on the sideline?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they would give it to DeMar. I don't. I think they'll give it to the city. I think they'll literally say, out of everything that we've endured since the 90s, but like specifically this year, the blizzards, the mass shooting, like this isn't just for DeMar. It's for the city of Buffalo.
Well, I mean, like not necessarily give it like, we did this for him. I'm saying like they hand the trophy to him and he celebrates, and then they give it back. Then they give it to the city. Like,
they will.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
he'll be incorporated.
Just that theatrical giving it to him. The city would lose it.
We're gonna lose it regardless. I mean, right now, personally, if we win a playoff game, we won the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody. It's just it's ridiculous.
I feel like nobody's playing good though. Like if we really dive into this season of football, who are you if I was another team, I wouldn't be genuinely scared of the Bills.
No.
But on the contrary, we're the Bills, I'm not genuinely scared of anybody. Like there's no team that's like, oh, they're good. Kansas City has struggled the past like 4 weeks to Denver. There was another team, Denver again, and then Oakland. The Bengals have struggled the last 4 weeks. We've struggled the last 4 weeks. Like, there's nobody in the NFL that I'm genuinely scared of, including the Bills. Like, this is literally the only season where I'm like, anybody could win.
Yeah, you're right. And
like the most scared I am is a undrafted rookie or the literal last pick in the NFL draft on the San Francisco 49ers. That is the team that I'm most scared of because he's a game manager and the team is fantastic outside of him. That's the team that I'm most scared of in the NFL, but I'm not scared of them. Like, I think the Bills can beat them, and I think they can beat the Bills. There's nobody in here that I'm like, they'll win it for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. This whole year is so weird. Mm-hmm. It's so weird, and it's exhausting trying to keep up with it all. I mean, they're talking about an AFC championship game being played in Atlanta or in New Orleans. Like, what are we doing? I mean, none of it makes sense. And it's not that I'm necessarily afraid of any other team or any other player. But that's the NFL. I think every major game this playoff year and the playoff rounds are going to come down to a couple plays. Because nobody's like a standout
yeah.
superpower.
And unfortunately, flags.
Refs.
I have a feeling that refs are
course.
going to be a huge issue this year.
Yeah,
because they've
absolutely.
been bad all year.
Yep, absolutely.
And that scares me because we're normally on the bad end of things. And I know that kind of seems like boy who cried wolf. But the Bills this year we've been so penalized in the wrong situations, and we've had the most drops. Things just haven't gone our way this year, which is so crazy that we're 13-3. But looking back on this year, we've won in so many different ways. It hasn't just been Josh bombing it. It's been the run game has won a bunch of games. Special teams has won a bunch of games. Our offense has won a bunch. Our defense has won a bunch. Like, we are actually a more well-rounded team now, I feel like, than we have been in the past because we're not solely relying on Josh. This whole year going into the season, from every NFL commentator, was like, they're too reliant on Josh. And I understand that. But you look at Cook and Singletary and what they've done, and you look at our special teams and our defense, we've done a very good job of winning close games, and when we lose, it has only been by less than 3 points each time. Like, it's remarkable what we've done this season.
It is. And our offseason is going to be based on, like, we're going to draft a safety. Mm-hmm. We just will. And
do you think Damar Hamlin plays again? I think he does. I think that dude would literally still say, I will die for you on the field.
Well, of course he would.
To me, that is insanely respectful.
He's a professional athlete. Like, obviously, he's going to want to play football again. My question is the NFL going to stop him from playing again?
I don't see how they stop him when they've seen Tua get injured 3 times in a year with concussions where he's literally forgotten the second half of a game, and they're still considering... I mean, they stopped considering him for this week like 4 hours ago, but they were still considering up until 4 hours ago that he could potentially play against the Bills. I don't think the NFL gives a shit about their players. I really don't.
I think a lot of it is optics and social media response. I don't know if Damar Hamlin plays again. I want him to. I just don't know if he will. Mm-hmm. I also don't know if they're going to allow him to. I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
But I think our offseason is going to be based around Poyer, Edmonds, and Singletary. Because Allen's contract kicks in.
And Davis. You have to think what we're doing with Davis. And Oliver. Those are the 5 big ones this year.
This might be the first offseason that Bean can't just, like, figure it out. Like, we're going to have to let somebody go. Somebody won't be back next year.
We'll talk about it, I'm sure, throughout this offseason. But really early predictions, who do you think we re-sign? We have 5 guys right now. You can re-sign 3. Who are you re-signing?
Singletary walks. We sign Edmonds and Poyer.
Do you think Oliver walks?
I don't think so.
You think we keep him?
Mm-hmm. It'll be a team-friendly contract, but I think we keep him. And Gabe Davis, I don't know. I really don't know what we do with Gabe. We might keep him, but he's
had a bad year.
He's dealing with a lot too. He hasn't been healthy since like week 2. Like, it's ridiculous. And now he wants to perform, but defenses are playing us differently because of what he is. So there's that on top of it.
Yeah.
And it's forcing our offense to change. I also don't know what's going to happen with who we lose between OC and DC. I don't know if Dorsey or Frazier are back next year because of the amount of head coaches that literally just got canceled in the NFL. They're just like, goodbye. Like,
there are so many one-and-dones this year. It's insane.
Yeah, Lovie Smith, Arizona, Tennessee. Like, everybody, there's so many franchises that want help. I mean, dude, the Giants are looking for people.
The Broncos, they're looking for a head coach.
The Broncos need more than a head coach, but I think Sean Payton is going to go to Denver.
And honestly, I feel like the dude irks me and he makes me cringe all the time because he's just an awkward human, but he's a good player. And I feel like if they yeah, I feel like if they get a good head coach there, they're going to be unstoppable. I truly believe that. I think Russell Wilson is literally an extremely gifted athlete, and he's done it year over year over year in Seattle.
I think Seattle knew what they were getting rid of, and they were fine with it. I think there's an element of Russell that's not here anymore because of his age, and I don't think a head coach is going to bring up more in him. He's making horrendous decisions. A head coach doesn't make him choose what he chose on the field. He's made terrible decisions with the ball.
But the past 4 weeks, he's been decently well.
He's made a couple decent plays. I don't know.
He put up like 35-plus points last week.
Okay.
He's a good quarterback, and he's. Still
I'm
got
not.
some
I'm not
life
saying
left
he's a
in him.
bad quarterback. I just don't think the head coach is going to bring out what you're thinking he's going to bring out.
Yeah.
Like he's made awful decisions with the football.
I still think that they could potentially make it an extreme turnaround next year, and then Sean Payton will be named Coach of the Year.
Who's Coach of the Year this year?
They're saying Dable is one of them.
Yeah.
Dable's a candidate. Nick Sirianni from Philadelphia.
Okay.
He's potentially Coach of the Year. Kevin McConnell from the Vikings. He's potentially Coach of the Year.
Why? They're going to lose in the playoffs in like 3 minutes.
And people are advocating for McDermott just based off of the fact that what the team has been through. It takes a good coach to bring the team in and focus on the objective. That's an insanely overlooked aspect of it.
I don't know how McDermott doesn't win it this year. And I'm not trying to be biased. Like, for Christ's sake, dude.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things in so many conversations that are public now because other teams have spoken to what he said during, like, private conversations. Yeah. The dude's class, and there's out-of-state listeners that watch our podcast. There are people in Buffalo that don't think McDermott is the answer, and they don't want him to be the head coach. I think all of them are wrong, but there's a section of the audience and fan base that think that, and I don't think the NFL should ever allow the Buffalo Bills to have another coach other than McDermott for the Buffalo Bills.
The reason that he won't win NFL Coach of the Year, though, is because the Bills were expected to be good, and they're good. Honestly, that's how the NFL has been for so long.
Yeah.
And that's why probably Nick Sirianni will win, is because the Eagles weren't expected to be amazing. They were expected to be middle of the tier, and they came out amazing. Nick Sirianni will probably win Coach of the Year.
Yeah. And then everyone's going to give the NFL a ton of trash for not having the Bills win it. But whatever.
What are you going to do? You want to wrap it up?
How long are we in?
Like 45 minutes.
Really? It was a football episode.
Hell yeah. It was a football episode. But we're in the playoffs. Playoffs.
We are who we thought they were.
Honestly, Sabres looking good. Not talking about playoffs. Sabres are looking decent, even though they lost 2 in a row. Sucks. Rip. And Boston is still crushing it. But whatever. We don't got to talk about that. They're looking decent.
Listen. The Sabres have figured something out.
They got a good kid, and his name is Tage Thompson, and he elevates everybody around him.
Yeah.
We got good young talent. It's really exciting to watch. I have been watching a lot of Sabres games recently because they are very exciting to watch.
Coming from the Bruins fan.
Mm-hmm. But I've also been watching a lot of Bruins games, and they're also exciting to watch because they are towering above the rest of the league.
What's the what are the East standings?
I'll tell you, and then you can understand how crazy the Bruins are towering above the rest of the NHL. It's literally disgusting.
And Elise, what do we got?
Standings. Eastern Conference. We have Boston Bruins in first at 68 points. The next, Toronto at 57.
Jesus.
Bruins are literally crushing it. They've lost 8 games this entire season.
How many points do the Sabres have?
Sabres right now have 42.
And the Bruins have 68?
And the Bruins have 68. The Bruins are beating the rest of the entire league by at least 12 points. And Toronto has 57, who's the closest with 11, and they have one game in hand over the Bruins. The Bruins have only played 40 games. They've won 32 of those games. They've lost 4, and they lost 4 in overtime. That's it. The Bruins are absolutely crushing it right now. It's honestly disgusting. And
Yeah, because they still got points in the OT games.
The Bruins or the Buffalo Sabres have a plus 17 point differential, meaning like point differential. Like they've scored 17 more points than the opponent has across the entire season so far. The Bruins have a plus 68 point differential.
That's disgusting.
They're so good this year. It's absolutely atrocious. The closest team is Dallas with plus 35.
What happens when they lose in the playoffs?
I'll be very sad. But honestly, I really do think that this is the year that they're going to win again. And then they are probably going to depreciate over the next couple of years. They've got a lot of key players that are going to be close to retirement. So we'll see. But, Michael, this has been fun. I'm glad that we did 2 episodes today. I'm glad that we drank some great Tommy Rotter whiskey here, the straight bourbon whiskey from them, finished in a Cabernet Sauvignon. Yes. And that's it. So you want to say anything else?
Go Bills.
Go Bills. Please remember to always drink responsibly, be a good person. And, Michael,
do not litter.
We're out.